Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Who are Mount Pleasant's best? We find out every year from our number one source for information in Mount Pleasant, which is, of course, Mount Pleasant Magazine. Thanks for joining me, Brian Cleary, today on the arm of Mount Pleasant Magazine, where the pages of that magazine come alive. This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast, and we're joined by the man. Bill Macchio is the publisher, the founder of Mount Pleasant Magazine. And when it comes to Mount Pleasant's best, Bill, this is something that you've been celebrating for quite a while. How far back does the best of go?
The first one was in 1990.
Wow.
And it was the first ever best of. And back then, the town was much smaller. The magazine back then was called East Cooper Magazine.
Okay.
And we did the very first Charleston's best. But obviously, there was no internet. The world was different back then, right? The landscape was different. I think I did a pub note, and I think that Mark Zuckerberg was like 2, I think, or I can't remember. I had boxes all over Mount Pleasant and downtown. You remember when we used to rent our VHSs to watch movies and Natural Home Video and stuff like that? You know?
Sure, Blockbuster or wherever you went to get the DVD to bring home.
That's right. And then also the Jackrabbit film places, you know, where you take your film. Anyway, I had these boxes all over there. And I would have a pencil and a ballot right there. People would fill it out. And it was almost like guerrilla warfare, if you would, for best of, right? Then I'd run around town and I'd get the ballots out of the boxes. And I thought it was a marvelous thing to get 2,000. And then we published it in 1990 in one of the earliest issues of that year. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome. Let me take you back to 1990 then. Maybe you can remember a little bit, spur your memory. Tell me some of the winners. Who was the big personality winner that year?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because obviously what we can say today or what we do say today and what was okay to say back then is different. So, do you remember Leslie Lyles?
No, I do not.
She was on, I think she was on Channel 2, but I had best sex symbol male and best sex symbol female. I would never do that now, obviously, but it was kind of cool to be able to do that. And she was the best female. And where to rent your VCRs, where to get your movies from. I'm excited that I was able to do that. You know, nobody else can say that, right?
Absolutely. And that was one of the points I was going to bring up, because that's the first thing that jumped off the page when I went back and looked at 1990, the sex symbol male, sex symbol female. You and I need to have a long conversation about how Warren Pepper could win sexiest male, but that's a whole different subject that we don't get into. But let's talk about that in terms of, and you mentioned it, the categories that are part of the best of, they've certainly evolved over to the years to what you have in the magazine now.
You are very much a community. By the way, for our audience, you do such a great job, man. You really do.
Thank you.
And the heart of what you do is about, yes, it's about the magazine, but really it's about the community Mount Pleasant Magazine represents. And I appreciate what you do for us, Brian. I really do. But bringing that into community, you know, you look at the results and it's like, where's the best place to view the Cooper River Bridge? Where's the best dog park? What's the best neighborhood for retirees? And why I'm bringing that up, Brian, that's community oriented. People often look at this and we do it too. We go out and encourage the people that were voted best to advertise, obviously. But we're a community magazine. For us, it's not just about selling ads and stuff. And if anybody picks up the magazine, they'll see that we have a robust amount of editorial. It's not just full of that. And I enjoy doing that in the best of, Brian, because it kind of fortifies the fact that we are a community magazine. And when people read, where's the best place to go for a walk or ride your bike, you know, that's because we're community.
Those are things that make a difference in people's lives. Obviously, We know Chief Meteorologist for the Lowcountry, Rob Fowler, is going to be the favorite weather person, and that's a great thing. But I think that's what makes the Best of in the Mount Pleasant Magazine Awards a little different, that you give people some insight into some things they may not think about. One of the things I know you do with Mount Pleasant Magazine is make it kind of a welcoming thing for people who move to the Lowcountry from other locations.
I cannot tell you how many times, just in general conversation over the years, oh, when I first moved here, this was our guide to where to go. And when I started quizzing people that would actually say that to me, why it was for them, because they're new to the area, right, is because they knew the results from the best of. So if I may, go out and vote, because your vote is important. The content and the results of the best of guided newcomers that are coming here, the best doctor, the best dentist, the best primary care doctor, the best restaurant, the best place to get your bike fixed, whatever the needs are. Clearly, this is a roadmap for newcomers, particularly, to find that business that the locals are saying is the best one to go to. Every issue of Mount Pleasant Magazine is direct mail to every resident throughout the year, new resident that moves to Daniel Island, Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island, North and South Mount Pleasant. And the reason is, the best of issue is the reason this happened, because like I said before, we had so many people that were new here just coming up to me or just in general conversation, hey, this was our guide. So I knew people were reading the magazine. So every issue of the Mount Pleasant Magazine is direct mail to newcomers throughout the year, not just the best of issue, but throughout the year.
If you love Mount Pleasant, you'll love Mount Pleasant Magazine, telling stories about Mount Pleasant for 40 years. First, as East Cooper Magazine when Mount Pleasant had 13,000 residents. Now, as Mount Pleasant Magazine when 95,000 people call Mount Pleasant home. Growing with Mount Pleasant and up the Carolina coast from Georgetown to Pawleys Island to Murrells Inlet. Published for Mount Pleasant residents and enjoyed statewide by travelers who pass through the state and the South Carolina Welcome Centers and beyond. This is your community, and we are your magazine, Mount Pleasant Magazine.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast with me, Brian Cleary, joined by the big man, the boss, the founder and publisher of Mount Pleasant Magazine. Bill Macchio is our guest today as we talk about best of. And Bill, you mentioned voting, how important it is. People need to realize that voting for the 2026 best of is on right now. Who is it that can vote for the best of?
Anybody can, really, okay? Our policy is as follows. If you're a business in Mount Pleasant, you definitely qualify to be voted for. But Brian, if you're a heating and air place, or you're a plumber place, or you're a painter, and you come over here, meaning over to Mount Pleasant, any of those 5 zip codes I mentioned before, 5 areas I mentioned before, if you service a residence over here and a resident over in Mount Pleasant, if they're a service company that comes to Mount Pleasant, then they are also qualified. Maybe you're an exterminator. Speaking of newcomers, some people don't know what a palmetto bug is, and they get freaked out, So call the exterminator. But if it's like a car dealer in West Ashley, okay? If somebody in Mount Pleasant has to go somewhere and they don't service over here, we don't accept that. And what we do is we check every winter. If they are not a service company and they only have a brick and mortar somewhere else besides Mount Pleasant, then we will pull them out. And this is an editorial function, so we reserve the right to, if somebody's voted for best hot dogs and all they sell is hamburgers, we will pull that out, because we take being the guide a serious thing, Brian, because people, like I said before, people look at this as their guide. And I want to make sure it's as professional and factual as possible.
As we go forward, say to 2026 or even this past year, any new categories that you've added that have excited you, or are there new categories that I can vote on this year?
We accept input and suggestions. A big thing that I know we added was CBD and hemp stores. And we don't mind the businesses calling. I think we added yoga. And Brian, we'll take things out, because this is an editorial function. One of the things we don't do and would never do is to change the votes. No.
The best of has evolved since it started back in 1990. The best of 2026 voting is going on now. You've got to vote by midnight on October 13th. Bill, if I want to cast a vote, where do I go to vote?
You go to www.votebestofmp.com. And we've got flyers all over town. The magazine that's currently out with Clemson, Carolina on the front cover. I mean, it's really a cute cover. I don't know if you saw it or not. There's QR codes in there. So just scan the QR code. It will take you right to it, or go ahead and go to votebestofmp.com. Thanks for taking the time to interview me, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
No, love doing this. And Bill, as publisher of the magazine, you don't pat yourself on the back a lot, but Mount Pleasant Magazine is part of the community. Obviously, not eligible for the best of awards from Mount Pleasant Magazine, but would you mind? I mean, the magazine has won some awards over the years. Any that you'd want to share with people?
Thanks. I didn't know you were going to ask me that. I appreciate that, man. We're part of the South Carolina Press Association. In 2024, we won awards for our creative creations of ads, and we've got recognized for our editorial content. And I'm honored by that, because that's the South Carolina Press Association. That's a really big deal, actually. I feel in that organization, we work really hard on our editorial and our layouts, but it's a work of love. We're very passionate about what we do. Everybody here, not just me, everybody on the team is here to make this magazine the best it can be.
No doubt about it. It's a great team, and what you read about in the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine, we have conversations about here with me, Brian Cleary, of the Mount Pleasant Podcast, joined today by Bill Macchio, who is the founder, the publisher, and the man behind what happens with Mount Pleasant Magazine. So we've talked about voting for 2026. We went back into history a little bit. You're going to go back later this month in history a little bit, just to 2025. Tell me about the upcoming Best of party for the 2025 winners from Mount Pleasant Magazine.
It's this upcoming Wednesday of next week. It's going to be at the newly remodeled Alhambra Hall. It's a great place. The town's done a great job with that. The winners from 2025, look forward to it every year, and anybody can come and meet the best of. We call it partying with the best. If you go to bestofmptickets.com, and you can see it on the screen right now if you're watching it, but you can purchase your tickets there.
Wednesday, October 8th at the newly renovated Alhambra Hall in Mount Pleasant. It's going to be a great night. But the other thing we want to focus on as we wrap up, Bill, 2026 voting is going on. Not for much longer, though, so people really need to get online and vote today.
We'll have at least 55,000 to 60,000 votes this year.
Wow. And then we'll look forward to seeing the winners, the 2026 winners. That magazine will come out when?
It'll be out in January. So it's our January, February edition. So what I'm proud of, too, is we're the first one out of the chute, because over the years there's been a plethora of best of type things. And that logo is extremely popular, and the consumer knows. I think it's a great way to support local businesses. So vote bestofmp.com. The local business that caters to you and you go to them, they'll love you for it. It's spreading some love, but it's a great way to support local businesses for sure.
You're the original, because there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys. Everybody's got a best of or some kind of awards, but going back to 1990, you were first.
I appreciate that, Brian. I really do. It was fun. You know, when you're doing something that could be a good thing is when you tell people what you're doing and they get a big question mark on the face. That, to me, I'm talking about something that's a lot different. This may be good.
It's happened a number of times, not just with the best of, but throughout the years with Mount Pleasant Magazine. Again, vote before midnight on October 13th, the best of 2026. And every time around, make certain to grab it. Mount Pleasant Magazine. This is the guy who makes it happen, Bill Macchio. Thanks for your time today on the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Yours as well, Brian. Thank you.
It's where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. I'm Brian Cleary. Thank you for joining us today for the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.